Be me. Late 20s. The kind of guy who has figured out most things except the ones that actually matter. Not ugly, not remarkable, somewhere in the comfortable middle where nobody writes songs about you but nobody crosses the street to avoid you either. My social life at this point is a small, carefully managed ecosystem of people I genuinely like, none of whom I have to perform for. I had a thing for performance once, back when I was younger, and thought confidence was something you demonstrated rather than something you just had. That phase ended badly, as phases do. And I came out the other side quieter and more accurate about myself. I have two close friends who matter. Ryan, 28, the kind of person who would give you his last $20 and then genuinely forget he did it, which makes him either saintly or financially irresponsible depending on how you look at it. And Dom, 29, who has read every book worth reading and will tell you about them whether you asked or not, but never in a way that makes you feel bad for not having read them yourself. These two men constitute the inner circle. Everything outside the inner circle is fine, but not essential. Which brings me to the group. There's a loose social arrangement that formed sometime last year, the kind that happens when two friend groups collide at a party and enough people exchange numbers that suddenly there are 12 people in a group chat and nobody's entirely sure how it happened. The group has game nights every other Saturday, occasional dinners, and the chronic low-grade drama that comes with any collection of humans who spend time together voluntarily. I'm adjacent to the group rather than central to it. I show up, I enjoy myself, I go home, I don't think about it until the next time. This arrangement was working perfectly until Zoe. Zoe arrived in the group 6 months ago via her friend Priya, who knows Dom's girlfriend Lily, which is the kind of social chain that sounds like a conspiracy, but is actually just how adult friendships propagate. She's 27, dark hair, the kind of person who is immediately funny in a room without trying to be, which is the most disarming quality a person can have because you can't prepare for it. First time I met her was at Dom's place for game night. She was sitting across from me at the table, explaining to Ryan why his Settlers of Catan strategy was structurally flawed, with the calm authority of someone who had given this exact lecture before. You're prioritizing grain too early. The ore-to-grain ratio you need for cities doesn't hit until mid-game. You're basically building a really elaborate way to come in fourth, she said. Ryan looked devastated. I always come in fourth. I know, that's my point. Something about the way she said that last part, genuinely incredulous rather than mean, made me laugh before I could stop myself. She looked over at me with an expression that said she had noticed, but wasn't going to make a thing of it. We didn't talk much that night beyond the game, but I filed her away as someone interesting, which is a category I apply carefully. Over the next few months, the group kept meeting, and Zoe and I kept being in the same rooms. We got along easily, the way some people do, where conversations don't require maintenance, they just run. Not flirting, not anything with a charge to it, just the comfortable frequency of two people who happen to be on the same wavelength, or so I thought. The bet happened, as far as I can reconstruct it, at Lily's birthday party, about 2 months ago. I wasn't there for the beginning of it, which is the part that matters. What I know now, because Ryan told me everything, with the guilty energy of a man who held it too long, is this. There was a conversation late in the night, after I had left, in which the topic of me came up. Specifically, someone said something to the effect that I seemed impossible to read, romantically speaking. That I gave nothing away. That I was, and I'm using the word that was apparently used, impenetrable. Zoe, who had apparently had 2 glasses of wine past her usual stopping point, said something like, I could make him fall for me if I wanted. This landed in the group the way a match lands in dry grass. Priya said prove it. And then, because adults are just teenagers with better furniture, someone suggested a bet. The terms, as Ryan described them with the expression of a man confessing to something he witnessed and didn't stop. Zoe would spend 1 month making a genuine effort to get me to fall for her. Not manipulation, not cruelty, just deliberate attention. If it worked, she won $50 from Priya. If it didn't, she owed Priya $50 and had to admit she'd misjudged the situation. The problem, the one that Ryan took 6 weeks to tell me about, is that by the time he told me, something had already shifted. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back to the month. The month started, from my perspective, with a text. I was sitting on my couch on a Tuesday evening, doing absolutely nothing interesting, when my phone buzzed. Zoe, Okay, weird question, but are you free this week to try that noodle place that opened on 5th? I've been meaning to go, but I'm not doing it alone. That's too sad. I stared at this text for longer than necessary. And we had never hung out one-on-one before. Not because there was anything wrong with it, but because we existed in the group context, and nobody had pushed it out of that context. I said, yeah, sure. And we picked Thursday. Thursday was fine. Better than fine, actually. The noodles were excellent, and she was the same as she always was. Funny and direct, and interested in the conversation rather than performing in it. We talked about an argument she'd had with her sister, about a book I'd been trying and failing to finish for 3 months, about whether it was possible to genuinely enjoy karaoke or whether enjoying karaoke was a form of self-deception. I said I thought it required a specific kind of person who had made peace with looking stupid, and that I respected those people but was not one of them. You're absolutely one of them, she said. You just haven't found the right song yet. There's no right song. There's always a right song. Everyone has one. What's yours? She named a song I won't repeat because it would embarrass her, she said, to have it on record. But she told me she had performed it at a friend's birthday 3 years ago, and the crowd had been involved. The crowd was involved. They were involved. Emotionally, I had them. I laughed genuinely at this, and she looked pleased with herself, and we stayed at the table an hour past when our food was finished. I walked home thinking it was a good evening. I was not thinking anything else, which, in retrospect, is remarkable given what came next. The following week, she texted asking if I wanted to come to a vinyl market she'd seen advertised. I do not own a record player. I said as much. You don't need a record player to enjoy browsing. It's atmospheric. There are dogs. There were indeed dogs. We spent an hour and 40 minutes at this market, and I bought a copy of a Miles Davis album I already had in digital form, for reasons I cannot fully explain, and she bought 2 records by artists I'd never heard of, and made me listen to a 15-second clip of each through her headphones to get my opinion. Which one? I listened to both. The second one. Obviously the second one. I knew you'd say the second one. Then why did you ask? Because I wanted to see if you had good taste. Which you do. Marginally. We got coffee from a cart, and walked around the rest of the market not buying anything, and talking about everything, and nothing, in the way of a conversation that has no agenda beyond itself. It occurred to me, briefly, that this was starting to feel like something. I filed that thought away under examine later, and didn't examine it. Week 3 was a movie. She texted about a film playing at an independent theater nearby, one of those restored 70s things that looks beautiful and moves slowly and rewards patience. I said yes, that we sat next to each other in the dark for 2 hours, and she laughed at things I laughed at, and was quiet for the same parts. And at one point, when something genuinely moving happened on screen, she made a small sound that I was not supposed to hear. Afterward, outside the theater. Okay, that was devastating. It was. The ending. Did they have to? Did they have to do that? They had to. Why? Because the whole movie was about the cost of the choice he made. The ending was the bill. She looked at me for a second. Okay, yes, that's exactly it. That's the correct read. I hate that you just said it better than I've been trying to for 20 minutes. We stood outside the theater for another 40 minutes, talking about the film and other films, and the specific experience of watching something that is sad in a way that feels earned rather than manufactured. She said she hated movies that made her cry through manipulation. I want to earn my tears. That's an unusual sentence. You know what I mean? I do. I walked home after, and thought the thing I had been trying not to think since week 1, which was that I was looking forward to her texts now, that I was checking my phone in a specific way, the kind of way you check your phone when you're hoping for a particular notification. I had not done that in a while. Week 4, she suggested a walk in a park on a Saturday afternoon, which sounds simple until you're actually doing it, which is walking beside someone in good autumn light, talking about things that matter to you, and you realize that you've been talking for 2 hours, and neither of you has suggested stopping. She talked about her family in a way she hadn't before, more honestly, with the specific texture of someone deciding to show you something real rather than the version they usually present. Her relationship with her older sister was complicated. Her parents had divorced when she was 18, old enough to understand everything and young enough to not be able to process it, which she said was the worst possible timing. By the time you're 18, they figure you can handle it. But you can't. You're just a kid with a driver's license." She said she'd spent most of her early 20s being the person who was fine, because someone had to be fine and she'd nominated herself. I told her I understood the dynamic of being fine, being the person who doesn't require maintenance, and that it was exhausting in ways you didn't notice until you finally stopped doing it. She stopped walking. "Yes! That's exactly it. How did you get that so fast?" "Because I did the same thing for years." She looked at me with an expression I didn't have a name for yet. We walked back slowly, and she linked her arm through mine somewhere around the halfway point, and didn't unlink it, and neither did I. And that was the end of the month. That was the 4 weeks. And what had happened, which I had been trying to avoid naming, was that I had completely fallen for her. Not the dramatic television version of falling for someone. The quiet, accumulating version, where each thing is small and fine on its own, and then you add them all up and realize you're somewhere entirely different than where you started. I wanted to tell her. I was trying to figure out how. And then Ryan told me about the bet. He told me on a Sunday evening, at his kitchen table, with the look of a man who had been carrying something heavy and had finally put it down, except he had put it down on me. "I should have told you sooner." "Ryan, I know. How long have you known?" "Since the beginning." The silence that followed that sentence was the particular quality of silence that happens when something you thought was real gets a question mark put next to it. She made a BET. It was stupid. It was late. There was wine. She said it almost as a joke, and then Priya pushed it, and it became a thing. A thing! Great! A thing where I'm the subject. I know. I'm sorry. Does she still think of it as a bet? Is she keeping score? Ryan didn't answer immediately, which was its own answer. I don't know what she thinks now. I think it started as the bet and became something else. But I can't tell you what she... "I need you to stop talking." He stopped talking. I sat at his kitchen table for a long time. The specific quality of what I was feeling was not something I could have named precisely then, but it was in the neighborhood of humiliated, and the humiliation had a particular flavor, which was that I had congratulated myself on being unreadable, on giving nothing away, and it turned out someone had read me anyway and turned what they found into a game. I went home. I did not text Zoe that night. I did not text Zoe for 3 days. On the 3rd day she texted me, "Hey, is everything okay? You've been quiet." I stared at this for a while. "Fine. Just busy." "Okay. Let me know when you surface. I found a place that does actual proper gumbo. I've been saving it." I read this twice. But she's saving a restaurant for me to take me to, as part of a bet where she wins $50 if I fall for her. I put my phone face down and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, which was the specific variety of stupid that comes from wanting something and finding out that the wanting was being observed and used. Dom called me that night. He had gotten to Ryan, apparently. "Talk to me." "Ryan told you." "Ryan tells me everything. He's constitutionally unable to hold information. It's a medical condition." "I'm fine." "You don't sound fine." "I sound fine." "You sound like someone who's fine in the way a building is fine 2 seconds before it falls down." I told him what I'd been thinking, that I didn't know what was real, that the month I'd spent with her was the best I'd had in a long time, and now it felt like it had been engineered. "Does it feel like she was faking?" Dom asked. "I don't know. That's the problem. I can't tell anymore because the context is poisoned." "But what did you feel in the actual moments?" "That doesn't matter. It's the only thing that matters." I didn't say anything. "You fell for her." "Obviously I fell for her. That's what I'm upset about." "No. I mean that's the information. You fell for her, which means the month was real to you regardless of what it started as for her." That's a very philosophical way to make me feel less stupid. You're not stupid. You just feel stupid, which is different. We talked for another hour, Dom in the manner of someone taking apart an argument piece by piece, until what's left is simpler than what you started with. I went to bed still not knowing what to do. The group had a game night coming up on Saturday. I considered not going. I went. Because the other option was letting the bet dictate my behavior, and I wasn't going to let a $50 wager between 2 people determine what I did on a Saturday night. I arrived at Dom's place at 7:30. Zoe was already there, sitting at the table with Ryan, who looked at me with the expression of a man watching a situation he has created and cannot stop. "Hey," Zoe said. "Hey, normal. Fine." The table was set up for a board game I hadn't played before, something Ryan had brought that had a lot of small components and a rule book that required a committee to understand. Sat across from Zoe. We played. She was funny and competitive, and called Ryan's strategy structurally flawed twice in the first 20 minutes, which made him throw his cards down in theatrical despair. I watched her from across the table. I was watching for seams, for the places where the performance showed through. And the problem, the thing I could not resolve, was that I couldn't find any. She was the same as she had always been. Either she was an extraordinary performer, or she wasn't performing, and I didn't know which was worse. Halfway through the game, Priya arrived late from something she'd had and slid into the seat next to Lily. I watched Priya look at Zoe. I watched Zoe look at her phone briefly. I watched Priya raise an eyebrow. These were the seams, not in Zoe's behavior, but in the periphery of it, the awareness from the outside that something was being tracked. I looked back at my hand. I lost the game. I didn't care about the game. Afterward, people were drifting toward the kitchen for drinks, and Zoe ended up next to me at the counter while I was getting water. "You've been off tonight." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're doing the thing where you're present but not present, like you're watching the room instead of being in it." I turned to look at her. She was watching me with an expression that was direct and slightly concerned and entirely unguarded. "What would you do," I said, "if someone told you that a person had been deliberately spending time with you to win a bet?" The change in her face was immediate, not subtle. The color shifted. She looked at me for a second, and then at the counter, and then back at me. "Ryan told you," not a question. Ryan told me. The silence between us was different from any silence we'd had before. "How long have you known?" "A week." She closed her eyes briefly. "Okay, that's all you've got?" "Okay? No, that's not all I've got. I just need a second. Take your time. I've had a week." She flinched slightly at that. "Can we go somewhere and talk about this? Not in Dom's kitchen. I don't know if I want to talk about it. I understand that, but I'd like to explain if you'd let me." I looked at her. She looked back, and the thing in her expression was not the easy, funny, comfortable presence I'd spent the last month with. It was something more complicated. Something that looked, if I was being honest, like genuine distress. "Fine," I said. "Outside." We went out to the small balcony off Dom's living room. The night was cold and the lights of the neighborhood were on. We stood about 3 feet apart. "It started as a bet," she said. "I know. Priya was going on about how you were unreadable, and I said something dumb, and she pushed it, and I let it become a thing, because I had 2 glasses of wine, and I'm competitive in ways that embarrass me sometimes." "Okay. But the first time we went for noodles, somewhere in that dinner, it stopped being the bet. That's easy to say now." "I know it is. I know how it sounds. I'm not asking you to believe it immediately. I'm asking you to let me say it." I didn't say anything. "I was going to tell you," she said. I kept trying to figure out how. There's no good way to say, "Hey, this started because of something stupid, and it turned into something real." There's no version of that sentence that doesn't sound like an excuse. It does sound like an excuse. "I know. The whole month, every time you texted, every time you suggested something, was real. After the first dinner it was real. I can't prove that, and I understand why you don't believe it, but it's true." I looked at her. "Did you collect the $50? Something crossed her face. "No, why not?" "Because you never said anything that would count as falling for me, which means technically I lost the bet. And also because collecting $50 from Priya while actually caring about someone would have made me feel sick. So you lost the bet." "I lost the bet. But you think the month was real." "I know the month was real. For me." I looked at the lights below us. I thought about what Dom had said, about the moments themselves. "I need time," I said. "Okay. I'm not saying it's over. I'm not saying it's fine. I don't know what I'm saying yet." "That's fair. I'm going back inside." "Okay." I stopped at the balcony door. "The song," I said. She looked at me. "The one from the birthday. I need to know what it is eventually. Not tonight, but eventually." Something shifted in her face. "Okay," she said quietly. I went back inside. Ryan was pretending to be very interested in the instructions for the next game. I sat down. I played the game. I lost that one too. I went home at 11, walked through the night air, and thought about the thing Dom had said about buildings falling down. I wasn't falling down. I was just standing very still, waiting to find out what was real. When the girl who bet she could make me fall for her did exactly that, And I'm the one standing in Dom's kitchen asking myself if I should be angry about something that felt completely true, regardless of how it started. Be me. The week after the balcony conversation is the kind of week where time behaves incorrectly. Some hours are very long, and some days disappear entirely, and the general quality of existing is slightly grainy, like a photograph taken in bad light. I go through the normal motions of a normal week, and the motions are fine. I eat, I sleep, I talk to people about things that aren't this. Ryan texts me twice, and I respond both times with the bare minimum of language. He understands. This is probably what he deserves this week, and he knows it. Dom calls on Tuesday and doesn't ask how I'm doing, which is why Dom is Dom. I'm going to say one thing and then not bring it up again. Okay? The fact that you're thinking about it this hard means you already know what you want. Dom. I said one thing and then I'd stop. That was the one thing. How about those sports? I tell him I don't watch sports. Neither do I. It's just something people say. I laugh for the first time in several days and feel slightly more like myself. Zoe does not text me during this week, which is the correct call. She said what she had to say on the balcony, and she's giving me the room to do whatever I'm going to do with it. I notice the absence of her texts in the way you notice a sound stopping. You don't know how much presence something had until it's quiet. Thursday evening, I'm sitting with my thoughts and the Miles Davis record I bought at the vinyl market, which I have now listened to 3 times and is excellent, and I realize that every single thing I associate with the past 2 months has her in it. Not as a decoration in the memory, but as the central thing. The noodle place, the market, the theater, the park. I can recall the conversations with a specificity that I usually reserve for things that actually mattered to me. I remember the exact way she said, obviously the second one, with the emphasis landing on the wrong syllable, in the funniest possible way. I remember the sound she made during the sad part of the movie. I remember her arm in mine for the last half of the walk. And I think about the bet. And then I try something, which is to think about the month as if I didn't know about the bet, as if Ryan had never said anything. And in that version, in the version where I just have the month itself without the context, the month is excellent. The month is one of the better things that happened to me this year. The question, the one I've been failing to answer all week, is whether the context changes what the thing actually was. And I think, sitting there with Miles Davis and the lamp on in the corner, that the answer depends on something I can only get from her. I pick up my phone. Me, are you free this weekend? 3 dots appear almost immediately. Zoe, yes. Me, Saturday afternoon, you pick the place. Zoe, okay? Then a pause. Zoe, thank you. I put the phone down. I sit with Miles Davis for another hour. Saturday comes with the specific quality of a day that knows it's important. Gray sky, cold air, the kind of afternoon that requires a jacket and rewards the decision. She picks a coffee place I've never been to, small and warm, with mismatched chairs and the smell of something baking in the back. She's there when I arrive, which means she got there early, which means she's nervous. I recognize nervous from across a room in someone who doesn't usually show it. She's got both hands around a mug, which is a thing I have now seen her do with coffee and soup and anything warm when she's thinking. I sit across from her. For a second, neither of us says anything. Then, thank you for coming. I almost didn't. I know. I figured. What do you figure exactly? I figure you spent the week thinking about whether the thing was real or manufactured, and whether it matters either way. And then you decided you needed more information to make that call. I look at her. That's accurate. I know how you think a little bit. Or I thought I did. I'm apparently less sure of things than I was before. That makes 2 of us. She looks down at her mug. The coffee shop murmurs around us, low and warm, and entirely indifferent to what's happening at this table. Ask me whatever you need to ask, she says. I'll answer it. Everything? Everything. Okay. I look at her. When did it stop being the bet? She doesn't hesitate. The noodle place, halfway through. You said that thing about confidence being something you have rather than something you perform, and I realized I was having an actual conversation and not running a strategy, and those are very different feelings. That's specific. I've thought about it a lot. Okay, next question. Why didn't you tell me before Ryan did? Because I couldn't figure out how, and because I was scared. Scared of what? That you'd hear the beginning of the story and decide that's the whole story, which is exactly what happened. And I get why. I'm not saying you reacted wrong. I'm saying I was scared of a version of events that turned out to be accurate. There's a pause. Did you actually lose the $50? She almost smiles. I told Priya a few weeks in that I wasn't collecting, and she should consider it a wash. What did she say? She said, and I quote, "Oh, this is bad for you." She wasn't wrong. She was not wrong, which is a thing I'd prefer to not give her credit for, because Priya having been right about something is insufferable. But there it is. I watch her. The easy rhythm of her is still there. The specific way she talks where she'll drop into the character of what she's describing and then come back out. None of it feels like a performance. "Can I ask you something?" she says. "Yeah. What did you feel during the month? Not now, not with the information you have now. During. You know what I felt. I want you to say it." I look at her. I felt like I was looking forward to your texts. Like I'd check my phone in a specific way when I thought I might have one from you. I felt like I was having the kind of time I didn't know I was missing until I was in the middle of it. Okay? And then Ryan told me, and all of that felt like evidence of something stupid. It's not. I know. She looks up. You know? I've been sitting with this for a week. Dom's take was that the moments were real, regardless of the framing. I think he's right. I just needed to hear you say what you said before I could agree with him. What did I say? You said it stopped being the bet at the noodle place. It did. I believe you, she exhales. The specific quality of someone releasing something they've been holding. I'm not saying it's fine, I add. It's not fine. The bet was a stupid and embarrassing thing, and if it had gone differently, I'd have been the punchline. I know. I'd like to be angry about that in the abstract. You're entitled to that. But the month happened the way it happened, and I'm not going to pretend the month was nothing because of a $50 wager that you didn't even collect. She's watching me with an expression I now recognize, the one from the park, the one I didn't have a name for then. I have a name for it now. So where does that leave us? She says. I don't know. Somewhere new. Somewhere that needs to be built from what's actually true, rather than from the bet or from the month. Something that starts from here. I can do that. I know you can. She almost smiles again. Almost a compliment. I'm still a little annoyed. Fair. We sit there for a while. The coffee gets warm and then lukewarm, and we order more. And we talk about things that aren't the bet, the book I've finally been making progress on. Her sister, who apparently called twice this week in the unrelated drama of family life, continuing regardless of personal crises. An argument Ryan and Dom had about something so trivial she can't remember what it was, only that both of them were unreasonably committed to their positions. She tells me about a record she bought at the market that she listened to 3 times in a row the week she got it. Was it the one from the second clip? Obviously. You said obviously like I should have known. I assumed it was established, and there it is. The easy thing, the rhythm that exists between us without effort. I don't say anything about it. I just note it, the way you note something you're not ready to name yet, but plan to return to. We leave at 4:30 when the coffee shop starts filling up for the late afternoon rush, and our table becomes socially irresponsible to keep, on the street, in the gray afternoon. I'm glad you came, she says. Me too. Are you going to be weird for a while? That's fine if yes. I'd just like to know. Probably a little weird. How weird? Scale of 1 to 10. Maybe a 4. 4 is manageable. I can work with a 4. It's not a problem for you to solve. I know. I just like having an approximate number. I look at her. I'll text you when I surface fully. Okay? She goes one way, I go the other. I walk for a while in the cold gray afternoon thinking about what Dom said and what she said and what I said, and the way the coffee shop was warm while we were in it. The following week is different from the week before. Lighter. Not resolved, but lighter. The kind of lighter that comes when you've had a conversation you needed to have, and the thing it produced, even if it isn't a clean ending, is at least true. Ryan comes over midweek, looking like a man who has been waiting for permission to return to normal. Are we okay? We're okay. I should have told you sooner. You should have told me immediately, Ryan, with the same breath you used to say goodbye at the party. I know. I kept thinking it might fizzle, and you'd never have to. It didn't fizzle. It did not fizzle, I noticed. I had eyes. Next time someone makes a bet about me at a party, I need same-night notification. There won't be a next time. This was a unique situation, Ryan. There won't be a next time. He looks genuinely stricken, and I feel slightly bad for him, even though he deserves all of this. You're forgiven. Stop making that face. What face? The face of a golden retriever who knocked over a lamp. That's unfair. It's accurate. He stays for another hour, and we watch something terrible on TV, and the friendship recalibrates back to normal in the way of friendships that have enough foundation to survive a wobble. On Thursday of that week, I get a text from a number I don't recognize. "Hi, this is Priya." I stare at this. I have never texted with Priya. I have the vague awareness that she exists because I've been in the same rooms with her, but we have never had a direct communication. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. The bet was my fault as much as hers, and probably more. It was a stupid thing to push, and I pushed it. I think about this for a while. Why are you texting me? Because Zoe would never ask me to, which means nobody was going to say it to you if I didn't. Did she know you were going to text? Priya. She would tell me not to if she knew. So no. I read this twice. Me. Okay. Apology received. Priya. She's been miserable this week, by the way. I noticed. Priya. That's all I wanted to say. I put my phone down and think about a person who apologizes for things without being asked to, and texts people on behalf of friends who would tell her not to. It doesn't change the bet, but it's a data point. The Saturday 2 weeks after the coffee shop, there's another group game night. I go. Zoe is there. Things between us are approximately a 4 on the weirdness scale, as estimated. We're normal in the group context, but there's an awareness between us that wasn't there before. A kind of charge that's not uncomfortable, just present. Halfway through the game, she makes a call that is, objectively, brilliant. And everyone at the table makes sounds of protest. I say, "That was correct." She looks over at me. "Thank you." I'm not saying it was kind, it was correct. Correctness is its own reward. Ryan shakes his head. You two are going to be a nightmare. You know that. The table goes quiet for half a second, in the specific way of a group noticing something. I look at Ryan. Ryan realizes he said that out loud. His face does the lamp-knocking expression. I meant, in terms of, strategically, as a pair of, "Ryan," Dom says, "I'm going to stop talking. Good idea." Zoe is looking at her cards. I'm looking at my cards. But the corner of her mouth has done a thing. And I think the corner of mine might have too. The game ends. People drift toward the kitchen. And Zoe and I end up outside again. This time not from choice, but from the accordion of a crowded apartment contracting people toward the perimeter. Different night. Colder. We're both standing with our arms crossed against it. "Ryan's going to bring that up forever," she says. "Ryan brings everything up forever. He has no short-term emotional memory, but perfect long-term. He really is the worst combination. He really is." Pause. "I've been thinking," she says. "Yeah, about what you said. Starting from what's actually true. Yeah. I think what's actually true is that I've thought about you every day for 2 months, including the week you weren't talking to me, and that the best conversations I've had this year have been with you, and that I messed up the beginning of something, and I'd really like to know if the middle and end are still available." I look at her. That's a lot. I know it's a lot. I've been holding it for a week. It came out big. The bet was a bad start. The worst start. Genuinely. I'd rank it. But you lost the bet. I lost it spectacularly. Priya was not gracious about it. Priya texted me. Her head comes up fast. She what? She apologized. Said it was her fault as much as yours. Oh my God, I'm going to kill her. It was a good text. It was a horrible text. She just decided to text you on my behalf without... Zoe. She stops. It was a good text. She looks at me. Okay, she says quietly. I'm cold and the night is dark, and we're standing on a balcony while 12 people are inside eating Dom's snacks. The month was real, I say. I've decided. Yeah? Yeah. Even the parts that started as the bet. The conversations were real. The things I told you were real. The way I felt was real. I don't think you can engineer that. You can't. So the bet was a bad prologue to something that became real. Yes, exactly that. Bad prologue, I say. But I've read books with bad prologues. And? Sometimes the book is worth it. She looks at me. Are you saying I'm worth reading? I'm saying I'd like to find out. That's the most romantically cautious thing anyone has ever said to me. I'm still at a 3 on the weirdness scale. You said 4. I revised it down this week. Progress. I look at her. She looks back. What would you do right now? I say. If this was just what it was, no bet, no week, just 2 people on a balcony? She takes 1 step forward. That's the answer. I close the remaining distance. She's cold from the outside air, and the kiss is brief, and then longer, and somewhere in the apartment behind us, Ryan says something, and Dom tells him to stop talking. We both pull back and she's laughing. Ryan is going to be impossible about this. Ryan was impossible before this. Fair. We go back inside. Ryan is staring at the ceiling with the expression of a man exercising restraint. Dom is watching him with the calm readiness of a spotter. Priya looks at us from across the room and raises a single eyebrow in a way that manages to be both smug and genuinely warm. I sit back down. Zoe sits next to me this time instead of across. The game resumes. She wins, obviously. The weeks after that are the good kind, not the manufactured good kind, of the bet month, not the careful architecture of someone trying to produce an effect, the kind that's a little messier and less curated and more true. She texts me things that aren't invitations to outings. She texts me because something happened and I'm the person she wants to tell. A thing her sister said that was accidentally profound. A song that reminded her of something from the vinyl market. A complaint about her day, the unedited version, the one you send to someone when you're not trying to present your best material. I text her back the same way. We go to the gumbo place she mentioned, the one she said she'd been saving. It is, as advertised, proper gumbo. We spend 20 minutes arguing about whether it's better or worse than the noodle place, and end up unable to reach a verdict. These are apples and oranges, she says. They're both excellent. Eaches. We should make a tier list. Of food? Of everywhere we've been. It's important data. That's a thing someone who lost a $50 bet would say. She points at me. You do not get to use the bet for comedic purposes yet. When do I get to use it for comedic purposes? I'll let you know. So I'll be waiting. You'll be waiting? I smile. She smiles. The gumbo is excellent. Priya, to her credit, does not make a production of having been right about any of this. She is, as Zoe described, insufferable in a private and self-contained way rather than a public one, which is the only acceptable version. At the next game night, she wins $11 off Ryan in a side bet about something I wasn't paying attention to, pockets it with quiet dignity, and says nothing. Ryan tries to explain his strategy. Nobody listens. This is the natural order. Dom's assessment of the whole situation, delivered to me at some point over a drink, is characteristically precise. The bet was bad. The reaction was proportionate. The resolution is good. The only long-term question is whether you can let the beginning be the beginning without letting it haunt the middle. Can you say that in fewer words? Don't let one bad chapter ruin a good book. You could have started there. Where's the fun in that? I think about what he said, though. About letting the beginning be the beginning. And I think the answer is yes. Because the beginning was bad in a way that was human and impulsive and came from the wine-fueled competitive instinct of someone who said a dumb thing and didn't know how to take it back. And the middle was good in a way that was entirely its own thing, unrelated to the beginning, something that built itself on the material of two people who actually got along. And the end, the part we're in now, feels true, not manufactured, not engineered, just true. One Saturday, about a month into whatever this properly is, we're at her place, and she puts a record on, and the thing that comes out of the speaker is the song, the one from the birthday, the one she named in the noodle restaurant and refused to put on record. I look at her. She is very carefully not looking at me. Is this? I said I'd tell you eventually. You said that's the song. I said I'd tell you eventually. This is me telling you. I'm not saying it out loud. Zoe, we agreed. I said eventually. You played it. I played it. I didn't name it. Those are equivalent. They are not equivalent. I am laughing. She is trying not to. The song plays, and it is exactly what I expected, and entirely perfect. You performed this. I performed this, yes, at a birthday, for a crowd that was emotionally involved. You sang this at someone's birthday. They requested it. I was resistant at first, but they insisted. How did the crowd respond? She finally breaks, laughing, hands over her face. The crowd lost it. I am laughing harder than I've laughed in months. We sit on her floor with the record on, and the lamp in the corner, and the easy warmth of a Saturday afternoon that doesn't need to be anything more than it is. And I think about the bet, how it was supposed to be a game, a simple thing, $50 changing hands, with me as the subject, how it produced the exact opposite of what you'd expect from something like that. How the person who was supposed to win lost the bet and won something more complicated. How the person who was supposed to be the subject of the game ended up with the best month he'd had in years, even knowing how it started. The math is strange, but the math is also right. I look at her, still laughing on the floor of her apartment. She looks back at me. "What?" she says. "Nothing. You're doing the thinking face." "I'm always thinking." "You're thinking specifically." "What is it?" I shake my head. "Tell me." "I'm thinking that you lost the bet. We established that. And that I'm glad you did." She goes quiet. The record plays. "Yeah," she says. "Yeah," she says again, softer. "Me too. That feeling when the girl who bet $50 she could make you fall for her lost the bet completely, and then you both figured out that was the better outcome anyway."
Theory about me said I was made of stone. Said she could find the door if she wanted. I was fine being alone. But she picked a Tuesday, sent a single line. Next thing I know, I'm laughing and I forgot I was trying not to feel fine. $50 on a feeling. She bet she'd make me fall. She won every single round and lost it all. $50 on a Tuesday. I was supposed to be the game. She was counting up the winnings when things stopped being the same. She never took the money. She told me so later. Said it felt wrong to collect on something that had changed her. I asked her when it happened. She said halfway through the noodles. I said that's a specific answer. She said I was always too logical, and I had a whole week to decide what was real. Turns out the moments themselves are the only things that can be a deal. $50 on a feeling. She bet she'd make me fall. She won every single round and lost it all. $50 on the record. I bought the one I didn't need. Turns out some things you don't plan are exactly what you need. I was the subject of the game. She was the one who couldn't play it straight. I'm glad she lost it.